Hello and welcome to the 8th episode of The Racing Report. I am your host, Rob Peeters. The NASCAR season has concluded and, like most NASCAR weekends, it was not without controversy. Is Joey Logano a deserving champion? Will changes be made to the playoffs following fan backlash? We'll talk about all of that and more coming up on today's episode of The Racing Report. But first, as a little reminder, if you like this show and you want to support it, please follow me on social media. You can do that by searching up RPEETERS33 on any of your favorite social media platforms, X, Instagram, Threads, whatever you use. I might get on Blue Sky at some point. Don't know. We'll see. Anywho, I appreciate you guys doing that, but for now, let's go ahead and jump right on into the news because there's a lot of news to talk about in the world of racing. We'll start off with Formula One because there are some big changes happening here in the world of Formula One. Niels Wittich has stepped down from his position as Formula One's race director. That's big news. Meanwhile, Greg Maffei, the CEO of F1's owner Liberty Media, is stepping down from his position at the end of the year. Maffei has been CEO of Liberty Media since 2006, but the recent restructuring within the company has made him elect not to renew his contract. Additionally, Dan Fallows has stepped down from his role at Aston Martin as their technical director, but the team says that he will remain active within the wider Aston Martin group in a yet-to-be-announced capacity. Now, so for some driver news, some silly season news, some crazy stuff there, Sauber has announced that both Valtteri Bottas and Zhou Guanyu will not be returning to the team. And in fact, they'll be replaced by Gabriel Bortoleto and Nico Hülkenberg, who we already knew was taking the spot. And we talked about last week that there was a possibility that Gabriel Bortoleto would be taking over that ride. And sure enough, they have confirmed it. So it's the era of F2 drivers in Formula One coming up here in 2025. So that's kind of cool if you like rookie drivers, see how all of them do. And then the other piece of Formula One news that we can talk about now is that Alpine has confirmed that it will switch to Mercedes engines and it will become a Mercedes customer team beginning with the 2026 season. So next year they're going to still run Renault engines for the time being, and then after that they're going to end their time as a engine supplier in Formula One because, let's be honest, Alpine was the only team running the engines. Everybody kind of gave up on them after the hybrid era kicked in and those engines were no longer as powerful as they were during the V8 era. Some other news here. All Formula One teams are expected to unveil their 2025 liveries at an event at London's O2 Arena on February 18th. The event celebrates the 75th anniversary of Formula One, and I believe this would mark the first time that all cars are revealed at the same time and the same location. I think that is one of the first times, if not the first time, that that's ever happened in Formula One. So, interesting. And now the final piece of Formula One news is more recent. Formula One has announced that they have re-signed a deal with the Monaco Grand Prix to keep the race on the schedule until at least 2031. Now, with that comes a date change. So no longer is that race going to be held on the traditional American Memorial Day weekend, where it kicks off a big Sunday of racing, where you have the Monaco Grand Prix, the Indianapolis 500, and then the Coca-Cola 600. If you're a race fan, it's the greatest day in motorsports. I have a little inside joke that I call it Racemas. Christmas and Racemas. It's the race fans' Christmas, basically. That is, I guess, going away in 2026, when the race will move to the first week of June. So get ready for that. But maybe it could mean more F1 drivers come race the Indianapolis 500. Fernando Alonso? Probably not. But somebody could. And speaking of IndyCar, let's go ahead and go right on into IndyCar news, because this is huge news in the world of IndyCar technical things, all things with not driver related, not series related, but AJ Foyt Racing has apparently parted ways with technical director Michael Cannon just 2 years after he joined the team from Chip Ganassi Racing. Now, this is huge news because Cannon single-handedly helped this team speed on the ovals. And if you saw, the last 2 years with the Foyt team at Indianapolis, they have had insane speed with Santino Ferrucci, impressive speed with Ben Pedersen, and then again, impressive speed with Stingray Robb that resulted in him leading laps. And who had that on their bingo card when the day started? Nobody. Don't tell me you had Stingray Robb leading laps, not out of pit cycle. Come on. You didn't have that, right? But he did. That's how important Michael Cannon was. So I don't know where he's going to land, but it looks like his time with the team is over. And it's kind of disappointing because we'll see what happens now when AJ Foyt Racing gets to Indianapolis next May. How do they stack up speed-wise when we get to qualifying? We'll see. Speaking of next year in IndyCar, this was very major that dropped. Racer reported an article where they interviewed Roman Grosjean. They talked with him. They kind of had a conversation with Roman, and they asked him, well, what's going on? Are you going to be on the grid next year? And he said, and I'm reading straight from the Racer article here, he said, quote, "It's all budget. So right now," this is Grosjean quoting, "I've got nothing lined up. It is what it is. I think last year was probably one of my best seasons, and I may end up not being on the grid next year just because the marketing has been horrendous for IndyCar. The hybrid has brought costs to a level that's unbearable for teams, and that's the way it is." That is a quote from Roman Grosjean in this Racer article. And that, to me, is huge because we all know that, yes, the hybrid introduction for IndyCar did not go very well. It has been very problematic. It has been very frustrating for teams. It has added an extra cost. And now we have a situation where even a former Formula One driver who has multiple podiums, no, he doesn't have a win, but he has multiple podiums, is faced with an opportunity where he may not be on the IndyCar grid next year despite wanting to. He wants to race in IndyCar next year, but he can't get the budget together to go with a team that will hire him. That is not what you want to see one of your stars, I guess, or an ex-Formula One guy, somebody that a lot of people do listen to. You don't want to hear them say that. So, and then the final piece of IndyCar news that we talk about today has Penske Entertainment has announced today, they announced Thursday, November 14th, that they have outright purchased the Long Beach Grand Prix. Just straight up purchased it. It's theirs now. It is now an IndyCar property. We'll talk about that probably more later on here in next week when we start to learn more details. But right now, that is the big piece of news in the IndyCar world. Now we'll move on into some supercars news. Jackson Evans will return to Brad Jones Racing for his sophomore season in 2025. Is what it is. He's been okay, I guess. He's been better than Jack Smith. But, is what it is. I think he's been all right. We'll see how he does for his second year. And then finally, Super 3 has said that they will not hold a championship in 2025. So if you're not familiar with Super 3, that's fine. It has essentially been a dying series for the last couple of years. And it used, old generation supercars chassis. And recently it had just basically been mixed with Super 2 weekends and just included the Super 3 cars in the Super 2 rounds. Now they're just axing it. There's just no point. There's no point to this series. Might as well just keep supercars and Super 2. And Super 2 is producing a lot of supercars drivers now. You think Kai Allen, you think Brock Feeney, you think, a lot of these guys who have been coming up now, they have their opportunity in Super 2. They get the call up and they have good success. So I guess no real reason for Super 3 when you can just develop in Super 2 and it makes more economic sense for the teams. All right, we'll move on into some NASCAR news now before we take a break, because a federal judge has denied a preliminary injunction to the antitrust lawsuit brought against NASCAR by 23XI Racing and Front Row Motorsports. We've talked about this for many weeks now, this antitrust lawsuit. So I guess based upon the judge's ruling, they have essentially said now that they want to see that this decision by NASCAR actually affects how FRM and 23XI operate. Like, they have to be now in a dire situation. So here's the thing that I'm theorizing, because that's what the judge said. Based upon what the judge said, it sounds like to me that they still have time to appeal, and they probably are going to appeal if they haven't already announced that. But what I think is going to happen is you're going to see a situation where they appeal it after January 1st when they don't have charters anymore. Because then, as 23XI has mentioned, at that point, if they don't have a charter on January 1st, Tyler Reddick contractually is free to leave the team. He does not have to stay there. He is free to leave the team if he wants to. That could maybe sway the judge. But again, I don't know. I really don't know. It's going to be very interesting to see how that all plays out. Now into some sponsorship news, some sad news, I guess. FedEx will not return to Denny Hamlin and the number 11 car of Joe Gibbs Racing in 2025. Denny Hamlin posted a heartfelt video on Twitter over last weekend, where he just basically thanked them for the last 20 years, where they started with Jason Leffler all the way back in 2005 and then signed him in 2006, and he's been with them ever since. That's what happens. Restructuring. That's how it goes. So, and then Jimmy Johnson says he will return to Legacy Motor Club to again contest in select races in 2025. Johnson said he, quote, absolutely wants to drive to get more experience with the next gen car and help any kind of engineering, basically run as an R&D car for his own team that he owns, since he can provide valuable feedback as well. And, a lot of people have been criticizing Johnson, saying, why is he out there? I don't care. He's a 7-time champion. Let him be. I wish he would still be running IndyCar. I wish he could do both. I wish he could run the Indy 500 and then go run, the race in Michigan in a couple of weeks. Not just because I typically attend the race at Michigan, but that's a different for it. That's neither here nor there. Johnson coming back in 2025. Bowman Gray Stadium is receiving upgrades before the NASCAR Cup Series returns to the track in 2025 for the Busch Light Clash that's coming up. It's getting safer barriers. It's getting new catch fencing. It's getting updated lighting. I mean, it's going to look like a whole new track when NASCAR gets there in February. And then Xfinity is going to return as a title sponsor for NASCAR's second-tier series. So it's going to be, again, still known as the NASCAR Xfinity Series in 2025. And then finally, this is probably the biggest piece of news that we're going to talk about here, is NASCAR finally, after years of fan backlash, and especially now, is considering changing the playoffs. And they're not going to get rid of it. I know, bummer. But they're changing it. They are open to considering to change it. Now, according to Adam Stern of the Sports Business Journal, it sounds like the NASCAR is open to the idea of the regular season champion getting some sort of locked-in berth, maybe to the round of 8. Also, maybe something happening with the win and you're in. Maybe doing away with that, or maybe making it 2 wins and you're in. I don't know. Also, this is again rumored in that same article by SBJ that possibly we could see a situation where we don't determine the champion with 1 race, and instead we start determining it with 3 races. Over 3 races, we say have 4 drivers compete over 3 races, and that's your championship round. These are all possibilities. These are all rumors. I don't know if any of these will come to fruition, but it's very, very different. It's a different tone that NASCAR has taken since a couple weeks ago when Mike Ford was calling everybody bots. Everybody who didn't like the playoffs, he said that they were bots. Completely different outlook now. Anyway, we have to take a break, but when we come back, We're going to talk about the NASCAR Championship weekend in Phoenix, break down all the happenings, and discuss, is Joey Logano a deserving three-time Cup champion? Don't go anywhere. You're watching The Racing Report. Welcome back to The Racing Report. I am your host, Rob Peeters, and now we are going to talk all things NASCAR Championship weekend in Phoenix. Obviously, a lot of controversy. Obviously, we just talked about, if you just joined us, we just talked about in the last segment that NASCAR is considering changing the playoffs. Why? Joey Logano won the race and the championship. Now, there's a lot of controversy behind this because Joey Logano had an average finish of 17th. And the champion, the average finish of the champion has consistently been going up. Ryan Blaney last year had the highest highest average finish of any previous champion under all formats at about 12th. Now Joey Logano has won the championship with a average finish of 17th. Now, you can say he played within the rules. He did everything he was supposed to. There was nothing that he did really that was wrong. He raced within the confines that he was given, and he did it better than anybody else. That's one argument, and I think it's a fair argument. It's the most fair argument, I think, and that's fine. That's all good and fine. But at the same time, here's the thing that I worry about is that most fans, at least that I know, don't really see a lot of these championships having much weight. Joey's champion. Joey is a three-time champion, but how much weight do those championships hold? At least in the eyes of fans. Because in 2018, it was the big three in him. He would always say it's the big three in me. It was Truex, Busch, and Harvick. Those are the three top drivers all year in the Cup Series. And Joey Logano beat all of them at Homestead. And a lot of people were saying, well, that wasn't... It should have been one of those three, not Joey. 2022 rolls around. It's not as egregious, maybe, but out of a season with 19 different winners where nobody really dominated the season because of all the parity that was introduced with the next-gen car, maybe you could give that one a little bit more weight. But this one, he was out of the playoffs. He was actually out of the playoffs. He was out of the playoffs for about an hour and a half, maybe. Then gets added back in because Alex Baldwin gets disqualified for his car being underweight. And then he goes out, wins Las Vegas, locks himself out of the championship 4, and then goes out and wins Phoenix. So all he had to do was focus on winning at least one of those races, focus on winning Las Vegas, which is something that he's done before. So just go out, grab those setups, grab that strategy, try and replicate it as best you can. Boom. He's won at Phoenix before to win the title. So just go back out there, grab that setup, grab that information, grab that strategy, information, and data, and focus all your time and energy on that race. And that's how he won. And that is, I guess, just the rules. Don't hate the player, hate the game. But a lot of people are not looking at it that way. I do think that this was probably one of the weakest championship 4s. I think the only driver that really deserved to be in it was Tyler Reddick as the regular season champion. William Byron, maybe I could make an argument for him. But for the most part, the fact that Christopher Bell and Kyle Larson and honestly even Chase Elliott weren't competing for a championship, despite all of those guys were far better than Logano all year. I'm not saying he's an undeserving champion. I think he played within the rules the way the game is played. But again, that's the thing. Racing is not a game. It's not a stick and ball sport. You can't determine it using stick and ball rules. I mean, it works. And even then, it's not the NFL where you only have 16, 17 games over the course of a regular season. NASCAR, you race 36 weeks. Those long schedules like that, Major League Baseball, basketball, and the NBA, the NHL, they all determine their champions over at least 5-game series, if it doesn't take 7 games. Why does racing determine their champion over the course of one race when it's not even something that most stick and ball sports do? It's another discussion. I have a podcast if you want to listen to it, at Robin Roller. Anywho, we'll talk about now the Xfinity Series because there's some cool things going on. Justin Allgaier finally gets that championship. He's got his title. Justin Allgaier is an Xfinity Series champion. I mean, this is somebody who it's been a long time coming for him, 15 years. When he was a rookie, all the way back in 2009 with Penske. And now he's moved up. He had a cup stint with some not so good teams. Did okay for what it was worth. But again, you can only do so well at H. Scott Motorsports. Ask Clint Boyer. But now he's come into his own, and it's been so hard for him. And especially the setback that he had, where he crashed in practice, had to go to a backup car. And still goes out there and wins the championship. Now, Riley Herbst did pass him on the last lap for the race win. But that didn't matter because he was still ahead of all of his other championship rivals. He was still ahead of Custer. He was still ahead of Allmendinger. He was still ahead of Austin Hill. Good for Allgaier. I'm very, very happy to see him finally get that championship done, especially after all the money that Brandt pours into the sport, pours into him. It's just great to see. It's very great to see. And then finally in the Truck Series, before we take another break here, let's talk about the Truck Series. Ty Majeski, man. Ty Majeski. Did Corey Heim kind of lose it there? Yes and no. The restart violation definitely hurt him, but he rebounded all right. I think the thing was that Ty Majeski was just a much faster truck all night. He had a faster truck. I mean, he practically dominated the race. He prepared for this. And I think that that's good for him, especially since NASCAR fined him. Did you hear about this? I didn't talk about this in the news, but NASCAR fined him like money. They took money away from him because he missed Media Day, Championship 4 Media Day, to go vote in Wisconsin. And all I could sit here and think about is, first of all, NASCAR shouldn't have made this fine public. It should have been under the table. Should have said, okay, well, we understand that you had to vote, but we still have to fine you, but we're not going to tell anybody. But instead, they went ahead and made a big deal about it. But, how was Ty Majeski going to know that he was going to be in the championship 4 with enough time to early vote or absentee vote or something? No, the dude planned to vote on Election Day. So he went to vote, and NASCAR fined him for it. Said, well, you weren't at Media Day for Championship 4, so we're going to fine you $15,000. I don't know. That's for another discussion. But either way, I am surprised. It is so hard. Corey Heim, I feel like, he's going to get his – it's going to happen for him at some point. And I know he's returning for another season in trucks, and that's got to be disappointing if you're him because he showed enough talent to probably move up to Xfinity by now. But the way he blew the championship in 23 by just basically getting heated with Carson Hocevar – the maturity that he showed this year to now just straight up getting beat. I mean, he kind of beat himself with the restart violation, I guess. But he had a fast enough truck. He could drive right up back through the field. And it wasn't like he had really super challenged Majeski most of the night. But even then, it's got to be just so frustrating for him to once again come up short. But I think next year, look for Corey Heim to probably go on a tear, probably win the title, and probably move up to Xfinity by 26. If that doesn't happen, something's wrong. Something is wrong with NASCAR executives, NASCAR team executives, because that needs to change sooner rather than later. All right, well, we're going to take a break now. Thank you guys so far. We're going to come back, and we're going to discuss when the motorsport season resumes, because the NASCAR season's over. The Formula One season has 3 races left, but the championship could probably get wrapped up in Las Vegas in 2 weeks' time. We'll see. Anyway, stay tuned. We'll talk about all the races coming up on the Racing Report. Welcome back to the Racing Report. I am your host, Rob Peeters, and now let's talk about all the races that are coming up in the good world. So we have the Supercars Adelaide 500. That's coming up here this weekend, November 15th and 16th. So that's going to be a big deal. Looking forward to that. Going to crown a champion. Might be Will Brown. Probably will be Will Brown, unless something crazy happens and Brock Feeney comes around and wins it. And then Formula E, the electric formula, is coming back. Finally, they're racing in December again. And I have long said that Formula E needs to race in December because they need to fill that gap when there's not much racing on. You know, they're still racing, but not much, right? They need to have that kind of circuit formula racing going on. So they're coming back December 7th. So really, in just a few weeks, you know, less than a month now, we're coming up on a brand new Formula E season, and they're going to race the Sao Paulo E Prix on December 7th. So I'm looking forward to that. We've also got the Macau Grand Prix this weekend to look forward to. If you've never seen the Macau Grand Prix, this is something that I highly recommend. It is a Formula 3, and it's also been kind of Chinese F4, but it's mostly historically been Formula 3 race. But it's one of the biggest Formula 3 races ever. Like, if you are a Formula 3 driver, if you are wanting to get to Formula 1, you want to have a race win at Macau on your resume. So that'll be on Motorsport TV. So remember, I don't know for sure off the top of my head if it's going to be paywalled, but I still highly recommend it very much if you get a chance to watch the Macau Grand Prix. If you are a late night owl like I am, because keep in mind, Macau's all the way in Asia, so it's going to be on the opposite time zone of us here in the North America. But I highly recommend checking it out. It's a great race. I have watched it many years. There's tons of support races as well to go along with it. So it's a whole big weekend of racing, and it's on a super fast, super tight street course where you think these drivers are crazy to race as fast as they do around these tight street corners, with just separating them is a guardrail from the curb and from a sidewalk and from, in some cases, the crowd. So definitely something you want to check out if you have the means and are able to. But again, Formula 1, the Las Vegas Grand Prix, is also coming up here the weekend before Thanksgiving. Looking forward to that. But remember also, it's going to be on at 1 a.m. 1 a.m. Sunday morning. 1 a.m. Sunday Eastern Time. 1 a.m. Eastern Time. So don't forget that. So you're gonna have to really be a night owl for some of these races. But hey, that's the price we pay for race fans. If you're diehard, that's what it is. And then NASCAR taking some time off. We'll have the Rolex 24 at Daytona. That is coming up here in January. That's going to be January 25th and 26th. We're going to have the Rolex 24 at Daytona. Finally, that's always my favorite event. That's always one of my favorite events of the year. And then finally, NASCAR returns on February 1st with the Clash. And then it's going to take a week off, have the qualifying races, and then the Daytona 500 is going to be on February 16th at 2:30 p.m. in the evening. So it's probably going to end at night again. Can't have nice things sometimes. Anyway. That's it for this week's episode of the Racing Report. I appreciate all you guys' support. Make sure to tune in next week as we continue to talk about all of the silly season happenings and look forward to the 2025 racing season. We'll also have some more evergreen content where we rank races, drivers, teams, what have you. We're going to have some fun. So stay tuned for all of that. And thank you guys for watching. My name is Rob Peeters, and this has been the Racing Report.